Are we back in the office? We're back in the office. Sorry for the delay between seasons. I was just in Africa and had the best time of my life. I was there with 12 other family members, from nephews, sister-in-laws, brother-in-laws, my wife, my kids, my mother-in-law, and we had an amazing time. Seeing the animals, the people in Kenya were just so nice everywhere we went. It was fantastic. Anyway, maybe I'll do a little episode of a little Drawn to Your Story, a little self-story, and maybe do an illustration based on that and talk about my trip. But anyway, here we are, Season 5, Episode 1, with Matthew Winner. He is one of the best voices in children's books podcasting there is, and I've been a fan of his for many years, back when I self-published my Adventurous Adventures of Missing Sock books, and I'd go there for inspiration. Now, with this episode, my biggest takeaway is Matthew really wants everyone to feel seen, heard, and loved through literature. And as you go through the episode, you'll really see that come to life. It's right at the forefront, but you'll see how much he looks like he really, really means it. All right. If you can, subscribe, check out the merch on Redbubble, reach out, let's have a conversation, and let's jump into it.
I've been all right.
Been all right?
Yeah, it's been a busy summer.
Okay, yeah. Well, we'll probably jump into that anyway, but what has made it so busy?
Well, the school year ended in mid to late June.
Yep.
And then I did some curriculum writing, and the kids are between me and their mom's place, and so it's going away for this and coming back for that, and going to the pool and coming back, and it's a lot of just things that are busy. I have this will come out in the interview, but I tend to really find stability in routine and in schedules and rhythms. And so summers are hard for me because it's a lot of like, we'll just hang out. We'll just do whatever. I have a very, very hard time resting.
Oh, so you and I literally might be the opposite, where I like a schedule and I'm like, oh, great. Okay. But that means, and don't get me wrong, I think schedules are actually a really good thing, especially for people like me who are kind of like, when I feel like it, when I'll get to it or whatever. But it's definitely like where I'm like, I've got to feel that vibe, or I've got to get this in instead, or I'll be distracted and be like, I'm going to get that over there. But yeah.
This is our first summer separated.
Oh.
And in the school year, I got used to that rhythm of kids are with me Monday, Tuesday, then every other weekend. And I just had that in this summer. And this is not a criticism. I'm grateful to have my kids whenever I can.
Yeah.
But that schedule has shifted or changed as it's needed to. Or my co-parent is needing to run these errands. Can I be with the kids? Or I'm going to vacation with them this time. So it's that, where it's just a little bit of, this isn't our normal rhythm, and I don't think it's, my kids are fine, I'm sure. I'm giving them a lot of stability, but it's that feeling of, you're asking me a lot, are you with me this weekend or with mom? And it makes me, I'm projecting onto that, our schedule's changing a lot. It's all right.
Yeah, well, it's your first summer. I'm sure you'll like iron out the kinks, and then...
Truly, I think every first that we're doing is just that. It's just the first, and then every time after that will be different. And my kids are safe, and they're happy, and they've got 2 loving homes, and that's great. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome that you guys get to provide that for them.
Thanks, Maddie. We're doing the best we can.
Would you like to jump into these questions?
Let's go. Whatever you have, I'm ready for it.
Okay, I'll do a little intro and then we'll jump into it. Here we are on Drawn to Your Story, and we're about to have Matthew Winner on here, and we're going to ask him 10 questions, and let's see what we come up with in a drawing. All right.
Maddie, before we start asking questions, can I ask you a question?
Of course you can.
How long have you been Maddie? I've been Matthew my whole life. How long have you been Maddie?
Oh, far out. This is an interesting question. So I used to not like being called Maddie. when I was younger. I always wanted to be Matthew, but I'm also a Matthew with one T. So I'm really just Matt Hugh. I'm not. I don't even have the in there. We were too poor to afford the T.
Or you're just math.
Yeah.
Ew? I don't know.
Yeah. That's probably it. That's more like it. So as we got older, there were so many Matthews in my small town.
Yeah.
And actually, most people where I'm from, they call me Matty Mitchell, and then they call me Matty Mitchell with like this tone. So it used to be that I worked in a skate shop, and they'd be like Matty Mitchell, and so I had this like little ringtone, and I would be like at a party, and someone might go, "Yo, Matty," and I'd be like, wouldn't even think about it, Matty Mitchell, and I'd be like, "Yo, who's calling me up?" You know what I mean? And so I still, to this day, I would love for any of my artwork or anything like that, if I could get to a point where I needed like a tail end sound or an intro sound that would be just like, I'd be like, do 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 do, and I would like base it off that, and it would just like be this full circle of like to me and my friends, and I'd just be like so amped.
My English professor in college, I started off as an English major before going into education, and Dr. Mangan, she was the first person to call me Maddie, and I just adored her for it.
Oh, really?
It wasn't a name that anybody called me. They shortened it to Matt, and I didn't like that.
Oh, yeah.
But she was the first to call me Maddie, and it just sort of became a relational name. Like she was a mentor to me, and this was just the name that she called me, and that was a really special.
Oh,
thing.
wow.
So,
that's sweet. That's really sweet.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like there was so many Matthews. Literally, as you're talking, I've got so many Matthews, Matt,
We're
and
probably
even
of a similar age. Yeah, that makes that, doesn't it?
But it's like, I don't know if you find it, but it's such a boring name. Like there's some, like people go, "Oh, hey, my name's Matthew," and then I've got John as a middle name and Mitchell as an end name. So I've got 3 potential first names. So like, I'm just. It's such a boring name where I'm like, and so when people started calling me Maddie a little bit older, and sort of had its own little ringtone, I was like, I felt more special with it. So
sounds like a skater name, Maddie Mitchell. Sounds like a
I
skater
am
name.
a skater.
I mean, I grew up skating.
Did you really?
Oh yeah, totally, absolutely.
Oh, awesome!
I
What
anywhere
era?
near what my friends are doing. I was born in '81, and
81
so they were
brothers.
They were skating. Rollerblading made me feel a little more balanced and okay.
Oh, no.
But it was like growing up. But I put like those pieces on the blades so that you could get the middle 2 wheels shorter, so you could grind on it. We would wax so there was stuff like that. And then being in and out of like punk rock bands and stuff, it was just sort of a
cool.
Yeah, Maddie Mitchell.
I didn't see many rollerbladers that were into punk rock bands.
I mean, I don't know that I was a rollerblader. It was like, well, I could bike to school, or I could rollerblade to school, or I could whatever. But I needed to be out with my friends and skating.
Did you ever
I was
watch
like
the
deathly
movie?
Afraid to break my leg. I don't know why I was afraid. I just was.
Oh, yeah. So, 2 things on that. Did you ever see the movie Airborne? I think it had like Seth Green in it or something like that.
Airborne. Not that I remember.
So I had a little tiny rollerblade phase because of that movie.
Oh, because of the movie. Okay.
And I would go and like do like off these little curbs, and I think I'm being cool. And I had like, so maybe I had like size 9 feet, but I had like size 12 boots on. And so they were really bad ones. Those ones you get from like Target or something like that.
Sure.
Like, and I'm doing like jumps, and I'm thinking I'm being super cool. Literally, a friend comes up to me, this girl, and she goes, "Oh, I saw you rollerblading at the curb." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, cool." And I thought she was going to say like, "That was a cool jump." She goes, "Were you okay?" Like, and I was like, "What do you mean?" And she goes, "Well, you weren't jumping like, but you weren't moving your feet. I think the boots were just so heavy for me, I couldn't lift them up. But I thought I was doing big jumps." Yeah. So that was about like 13, 14. But back to the skateboarding, I always think you can tell a true skateboarder by if they like the slams. Like, not saying you like the slams, but there's a part of you that likes the slams. So that's how I sort of think. Like, if when I hear people, I skated and I fell a little bit, and I was like, not into that, and I was like, you were never going to make it.
No, I knew I was never going to make it. I knew that I was doing it to keep up with my friends, and I loved the feel of it. I loved being in that group a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Loved being in that group. But no, I have so much. I'm so pain averse, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah.
And again, all my friends would watch them do stuff, and I love watching it. I could be that, but I couldn't join them. So
Yeah.
Turned out okay.
I think you're doing fine. You probably have better ankles and knees than I do, so you're doing great. All right. Let's jump into the first question. I feel like we could chat forever, so we'll jump in.
Good stuff.
Cybertruck, yay or nay?
Cybertruck. Ooh, hard pass.
Oh, hard pass.
Hard pass.
Oh.
Are they around you? We got a bunch around here.
A bunch around here. Whereabouts are you based?
Outside of Baltimore.
Oh, okay. I'm in Seattle.
Okay.
There's I have a Tesla, and I love the electric car. In fact, I can dog mode, leaving my car on in the winter where I can be warm.
Oh, cool.
I just love it all, and I don't have to feel guilty about it, right?
Sure.
The Cybertruck, I'm actually all for. I love stuff that's different. I'm drawn to stuff that is different. I just can't help it. I love it. And so I see that, and I'm like, yes, it's so, different. So the Tesla that I have is the Tesla Y, but around here, so many people have Teslas where I'm like, it kind of looks like when Priuses first came out, and everyone looks like got a Prius, and I'm like, I see one that comes with a different color wrap, and I'm like, I think we need to get a different color wrap on this. And I've always wanted a black car with black rims and everything, but now I'm like, well, everyone has one around here. So that's how I love being different. I did odd shoe summer last year, where I wore odd shoes just for the summer because I had this wild idea, and I love the thought of that just being different, just changing it up and not being in the society norms. Even though I do like the norms for a lot of reasons, but I like being that little, whether there's a thorn or a green thumb or whatever it is outside of it.
I think, not to yuck your yum,
that's
but
okay.
I think that the style jumped too far from the norm, that it looks like you're trying to be intentionally pretentious with that vehicle.
Oh,
and I have a bit of a sensitivity around I get you come from money, people driving that vehicle. I'm in an area too where I'm like, I don't need to be reminded that you have money and I'm a teacher.
Yeah. I agree with that, but there's also it's funny because where I live, it's so much around it's like a tech giant around here,
sure.
Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, Google, all have places around here. I used to work at Nintendo. A bunch of these places just all around here, right? And then there's all the businesses that feed off them, and then it's just so much money. There's 2 Ferraris that drive to a public school and drop their kids off every morning. Wonderful. And I'm like, live your life. If you've saved up and you're
truly.
live that life. Because I would be so much more bummed if that person had a Ferrari and they just sit it in their house and they just polish that thing. I'm like, get out there and at least
if that's
drive
your thing, I spend all my money on comics and video games. So
truly,
if your thing is to get that, great, love it.
Yeah,
Go for it. It's just not mine.
Yeah, I feel. And I think the really big thing is that, even the Ford Lightning or the other electric cars, I think they're rad. I do like the idea that they push the pendulum so far. Whether that will impact design of other cars in a positive way, no idea. But it makes it go, you know what? We can do something different. We don't have to be in the norm. Let's look at the world a little different and see what works better for us. That's the way I look at it. But
is it looking at the world different, or is it just I grew up watching Terminator and Blade Runner. Let's just make a vehicle that looks like that. I don't know.
Maybe.
It's
but how many?
Listen,
it's just I
don't mind going there.
No, let's think about that. But what about when Star Trek they had things that were very much like cell phones?
Oh, I know, right?
Right. So then you've got
you got these positive influence. I think of, remember that movie Idiocracy?
Oh yeah. I think about that all the time.
But do you remember the shoes that they wore that they tried to make looking the stupidest looking shoes in the world?
Crocs.
And they were Crocs?
I know. My kids wear them. My kids wear them.
Maddie, I don't know what way we're gonna land on this. If Cybertruck is gonna be the stupidest thing in the future, or if we're all gonna be yeah, that's what we're all driving.
Yeah. It could be. I think that we're so far away from people adapting to that sort of thing. It's
Yeah.
like people are just like they love their normal things. Like everyone, I don't know. It's so far removed. I don't think you'll see as many around as you want, and then I think they will adjust back towards the norm.
The different designs will look a little bit backward. Yeah,
I imagine, but who knows? I'm not Elon Musk. I don't care like what the guy thinks or anything like that. I just like the fact that it's an electric car that it kind of looks different and fun.
It does. Cool.
But I like how it's so divisive as well.
I love too thinking like growing up drawing. As we all were, I was like drawing Ninja Turtle stuff and the Ninja Turtle blimp and all that. I think like, oh, I could draw that Cybertruck. Like, As an 8 or 9 or whatever year old, I could totally draw that. That's so I could do that.
Yeah.
So I like that.
There was a funny quote. It was like there was a Cybertruck and like a some sort of other sedan next to each other, and it was saying it's like, oh, this is like the 2001 graphics for some video game, and I was like, oh yeah, that really does make that look like that. I was like, that's great. All right, what do you do to pay the bills?
I'm a elementary school librarian.
Oh,
Pre-K through 5th grade. I've been doing that for almost 2 decades. I started off as a 4th grade teacher, and in the state of Maryland, we had to get our master's right away. Yeah. And the librarian at my school was just wonderful. The 4th grade team was collaborating with her all the time. And she said, hey, McDaniel College is doing their cohort again for this master's. You have to get your master's anyway. You should do this. It's technology. It's books. You should do it. And I haven't turned back. It's been a perfect job for me.
Yeah. So I heard that a crazy statistic that there's more libraries. I'm Australian and an idiot, so like hardly get that word out. And then there are like McDonald's in the country. Like it's a lot more than what people think. So like around.
I mean, it is. I think something that's hard to argue against is the statement that who had shared it to. I don't even remember what celebrity had shared it, but just that our library system in America is probably our greatest institution in America. The fact that Andrew Carnegie set up this system where anybody could access all of this knowledge for free. There are people that go to the library to get help on government documents, to apply for loans, to use high-speed internet where they might not have it, to have access to heat or air conditioning or food or different programs like that. They really are one of the best things we have going for us.
Yeah, I agree. I don't actually use my library very much, but when I see it in town, when I drive by it and I see people going, I'm like, that's so rad. When I used to take my kids there a lot, like when they were younger, and I'd take them in there and I'd be like, oh, like pick out books. My wife still takes my daughter down to pick out books when I'm like at like work or whatever. Like she'll be, oh, take them down. She'll come back with a pile of books. And they're so varied in what she's like, be fairies, dinosaurs, space. And I'm like, where can you get access to that without having a huge buy-in? There's no negative to it, you know what I mean?
Right. Well, and when you're in a school library too, if we're doing our jobs the best we can, and not every state funds school libraries, unfortunately, but if your child has that chance to come to a library regularly, then they're both learning the value of a library and also how to use it, how to find information. And often in libraries now, different from when we were growing up, in libraries now, we are the center of the school. We're the center of new technologies and integration in that way that we are helping those kids ask whatever questions and find how to find the answers. And then you graduate and you get to do that independently.
Do you guys still use what's the Dewey Decimal System?
Yeah. Yep.
That always blew me away. Like I just had no idea. Even as a kid, I just knew where like the books were. Like if I've got to go to a history book and I'd just go, here, yep, no, I'm just look through all the books.
Did you read the spines to find it?
Yeah. So, but the question was sort of does technology make that easier now? Like it's all like more done through like computers and stuff like that? Where
I think that technology and this global database that we have of these books helps make recommendations even easier. Oh, you like this book? Here's another one. Here's one that's on your reading level. Here's one with, you like these. We use a website called Novelist, Novelist. A lot of public libraries use it, and we also use it in our county to help with purchasing. And Novelist does a really wonderful job. Novelist K8 is the elementary one. Does a wonderful job of saying, okay, you like this one book. Why do you like it? I like it because it has robots. I like that the main character is alone and has to fend for themselves. I like because it centers on bravery. We can sort through all books ever published to find a book on your reading level that also has a robot, that also deals with aloneness or survival or something like that, in a way that we just couldn't do that in libraries before. We still have the same organization system. So your fiction is here and your nonfiction is grouped by whatever the overarching categories are, but the meta tagging is so much richer now that I think if you understand how to use the public access catalog, it becomes, library organization hasn't changed, but the means with which we're able to tag things and find those resources has only gotten more and more complex, and that I think helps every reader find themselves in a book.
I can't remember if this is correct, but at the we're in King County here, and I think with like audiobooks they have it where if it's checked out, it counts like as a book checked out, so like, oh, that audiobook will be available in like 2 weeks, and you can come and like get that audiobook then. Is that the same sort of thing that happens in your library system?
Oh, that's here's a fun thing for anyone listening that doesn't know that this is. I literally had a friend ask me, it's an ebook. What do they mean when they have 3 copies of an ebook? And audiobooks work the same way, unless you're getting actual like CDs out of the library. But if you're getting the digital, it works that way with borrowing digital files as well, because publishers own the rights to these materials. And so when libraries buy a copy of that digital book, they're buying licensing to access that book. So they can buy license for 5 people to access it at the same time, or for 20 people. And they can buy that access for, depending on the publisher, for a certain number of circulations or for a certain number of years. And so that's also why they would automate that system, that even though it's digital, those files would be removed from whatever app you're using to Hoopla, or whatever app you're using to access that, Libby, so that somebody else can access those files. It all comes down to licensing.
I actually love that. I kind of wish there was more of that stuff in society a little bit. Like, oh, on Netflix, you can't watch it. There's already 1 million people watching it. Sorry. And then you got to like wait till like, okay, now you can jump in the slot. I don't know what it is, but it's sense that like when you had to watch a show like every Friday night or something like that, and it'd be like,
scheduled.
Yeah, it's sort of like, well, it works perfect for you, like it'd be scheduled for you. But like it's sort of this sense of like urgency or need or want, where we just have access to so many things.
Oh yeah, the value of waiting.
Yeah,
is something, isn't it, Maddie? Yeah. The who knows if in a decade or so this will change at all, but if we could have whatever movie you're looking for, whatever, I mean, because you could still rent DVDs from your public library, but if you could rent digital movies, Netflix owns the license for this period, or Hulu owns the license for this period, but if somehow there was a bigger system that you could queue up for, hey, I want to see the first season of Game of Thrones, but I don't want to pay for an HBO subscription or a Max subscription, but can I be on a wait list to watch the first 5 episodes? You could envision a world that publishers wouldn't lose money, but more people could gain access through a system of holds and waiting. We're just not there yet, but technology has just gone quite fast. It's hard, I think, for anybody to keep up with it.
I think so as well. It's hard for us to, as just a society, to be like, what do we really need? Oh no, it's moved again. Like right now, we're all about AI, and so we're like, oh dang, we're figuring out that stuff. We haven't even sorted out the stuff before. But all right, we got to go. We got to keep moving on this. So I think it's like moving faster than we can sort of like adjust to properly.
Yeah, we see that in education. We are, at least in my county, in Howard County, in Maryland, we're already incorporating a lot of lessons about AI into our technology and library classes in pre-K through 5 because our children are going into a world that doesn't exist yet, right? And so the best we can pour knowledge into them and at the same time talk about ethics and talk about access, then as their minds are forming, as they're coming up with their own ideas about how the world works, hopefully they will be exiting elementary school, middle school, high school with a better sense of I've lived with this technology and I also understand how it works and ethically the right way to protect myself and you and other people's work. It is going very fast. And I think maybe I could say this just coming from my field. I can reassure you that there are people working with your children that are working to help make sure the generation that's going to inherit this world from us will know how to do that better than we know how to do it.
Yeah. I hope so, because some of the stuff where I'm like trying to keep up with, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, you kids, I don't know what you're going to, like, all I had to keep up with is when phones came out and I could start texting. And I was like, oh yeah, great. Oh, I work at a surf shop and all I have to do is like scan something and put something in there. And I was like, okay, we learned that. It was all such low level stuff. And now it's like, just to have a job, you've got to know Excel. You got to be able to work it on your phone. You got to be working on a computer. Like, you got to be able to troubleshoot this stuff on the go. Like, there's so many things, and then adding AI and all that stuff into it. Yes, I agree.
Maddie, I hope I hate to be doom and gloom to a degree, but I hope that our kids are better able to manage boundaries with technology than we are, because all of us adults have put work email on our phone and we check it all the time, and we do. Even just from that, where is our boundary between when we're at work and when we're at rest? Let alone to talk about being on social all the time or whatever. I think even just that while we have access to all of the information, the fact that our jobs have access to us is a little alarming to me.
I agree. I definitely struggled with that when been like, oh, I got an email, I got to answer that right now.
It feels like it, doesn't it?
Yeah. And then as I got sort of past it, I was sort of like 2 or 3 years at Nintendo, and I was kind of like, no, I'm not answering that right now. I'm hanging out with my child.
I was going to say, it was my kids being born that made me feel like, you're not paying me to work. You know, teachers were 10-month employees, and we have summers off. We're not paid over the summer.
Yeah.
But the number of hours potentially you could do as a teacher during the school year almost makes up for those 2 months that we're not paid.
Yeah.
You really have to do your best to manage when you're able to turn things off.
Yeah. I got a couple of friends that are school teachers, and they say the same sort of thing. Like, it doesn't stop for them at 3. Everyone's like, oh, it stops for us at 3. No, like, when do you think the tests get like checked or the work gets checked or that sort of stuff? So,
well, not just grading. I think about my students constantly.
Yeah.
I think about them. I worry about them. I care about them.
Yeah.
So to also take home grading is just
a lot. Yeah. It is a lot.
To be worrying about 500 children.
Yeah, like, great, I got 2 of them. I got 502 children every year.
Oh, yeah.
So you also have a podcast as well?
Oh, yeah, for 11 years.
11 years.
A podcast. The Children's Book Podcast has run for 11 years. Can I tell you the whys and hows?
No way. No. Can you give us information on this podcast? Yeah, of course.
Here's the whys and hows. Why did I start this podcast was that in 2013, I got recognized nationally from Library Journal, our big publication, as being a mover and shaker for the work I was doing with bringing video games into the classroom. To support math instruction and engage children and look at gamification in the education setting.
Yep.
And when I was at a library conference in Chicago, a friend of mine said, well, what's next? And I said, well, I listen to podcasts all the time. But there's not any podcasts for children's books, and I really like I'm a librarian.
Yeah.
That I kind of feel like I wish there was something even just that I could listen to vet who are we inviting into our schools to speak to our kids. We don't know these people. I know I like the books that you wrote, but I don't know how you are in front of children.
Yeah.
And so I started the children's book podcast. My friend Travis literally said, well, when are you going to start? And so I did then in 2013. And it started off, the very first couple episodes was sort of building that interpersonal relationship with the author, going, I know your work, but I kind of want to get to know who you are. Mm-hmm. But then over time, it turned into, I am such a fan of the medium, the art medium of the picture book and of the novel, of the graphic novel, of the novel in verse, that it became sort of a master class for me to be listening to all of these authors and illustrators talk about how they make their thing.
Yeah.
And then I guess the audience got to be fly on the wall in the show. The show went through a couple changes when I was hired to run a podcast company with a company called Kids Co. I ran their 13 podcasts. I was the head of podcasts there. And so I put the show on hold, and then I changed the show into something where we were talking about current events and how I talk to my students about current events. So I called the show Worth Noting. It's still on the exact same children's book podcast feed. You could go back and find it. Then after leaving a Kids Co., I brought the show back, but I made the show more for children, because by that point, Maddie, I thought, well, there's so many people that have children's book podcasts. I was the only one before. If somebody else was doing a children's book podcast 13 years ago, I probably wouldn't have ever done it. I would have just listened to the person doing it. I
feel like I used to listen to your podcast. Was it called like?
It used to be called Let's Get Busy.
Let's Get Busy.
Because I had a blog called The Busy Librarian, so it was like, let's get busy. Let's just call it that.
Okay.
And then a friend and I formed a sort of a children's book collective, and we renamed the podcast after that and called it All the Wonders. Children's book podcast.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
So you were like second iteration, and then after All the Wonders closed, paused, hiatus after Trump was elected. I remember that was the time where we were all sort of feeling down. Off. I then just let go of the All the Wonders moniker and just stayed the children's book podcast.
Yeah. So I used to listen to you guys quite a lot because I self-published 2 children's books.
Okay.
The Adventurous Adventures of the Missing Sock. The first one's a dud. The second one I think is really fun. But then, so I just listened to it and been like, oh man, how can I do this? How can I get it? I illustrate a whole bunch and everything like that, but I was also like, I want to write. I've always got these like crazy stories going on in my brain, so I wanted to write these stories and stuff. But it's so hard to break into the industry, to chip in, very hard. And so I would listen to your podcast and be like, because I think you had Ryan T. Higgins on there or something like that.
Absolutely.
And I was just like,
probably for both Mother Bruce and then later for. We Don't Need Our Classmates with Rex, a bunch. Yeah. A couple times.
I think it was like it had to be around 2013 or 14. I think I remember you guys transitioning outside of that as well.
Sure.
But it was definitely I think it might have been Mother Bruce or something because my kids loved it and I was like this book and the illustrations in that and his ink work in that and I'm like,
he's fantastic.
Dang,
his line work's gorgeous.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. And so I remember that, but. I dropped off it for a while, and then when I saw your name, and then I saw the podcast, and I started following you guys and on Instagram. I was like, this just sounds so familiar, but it wasn't until literally I
called it something different. I made it look different. Yeah, there's a lot of things that changed.
Yeah, and so it just dawned on me, and I was like, oh dang, it all sort of saying, yeah, that's amazing.
Cool to know that you were listening back when you were just starting to make stuff. That's cool, Maddie. I'm flattered.
Well, yeah, I was trying to I've been always making stuff, but it was and I've written children's books before, But I had no idea. I was just like, oh, I'm going to write a children's book, and I illustrated these ones out. And I did one like how I imagined my way to Mars even, and it has one where it's like the picture of the kid flying to Mars, and then the next page is how he's imagining his way. So it's all the stuff that he's made, and it's like it's almost like you flip it over, and it's like kind of like the reveal of like what it is anyway. But I've done all this, but I just never pushed it, and then I was like, it wasn't until I was like, okay, no, I'm going to give it a shot and give it a push, but that push is really fucking hard.
I write children's books as well, and gone through different life things. So I've had times of really writing regularly and writing more widely, and now times now with life things where I'm sort of pulled back, knowing that it'll always be there. But I have a book series that I co-authored that went all the way up to acquisition and just got a pass at the table. So I thought, well, that's about as close as you can make it. And so it'll happen one day, but it's hard.
So
it's very hard.
Even with your podcast and everything that you have going on.
Well, I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but maybe it does.
Really?
Sure. I don't know.
So how long ago was that? Because I feel like half the time, like they would look at your, like how much do they like your art, but also how much can your followers like buy some of these books? You know what I mean?
It probably has something to do with it, but it's also a time when graphic novels are really starting to swell.
Yeah.
A lot of purchases of graphic novels. So to be a graphic novel series is, I think, probably a time when I assume we're going to sort of level out with graphic novels. I think it's a fantastic format for storytelling, but I think we've sort of got a bit flooded on it right now that it needs. Wonderful that we have so many voices writing comics, but we've probably got a lot of people entering into that space right now. So it's okay. It's competitive. For me, it's I love traditional publishing because I love the thought of having this team behind you. I've interviewed art directors, and I've interviewed agents, and I've interviewed editors, and I've interviewed these different people that make me feel like, gosh, to have a team behind me and not be out of pocket. So for me, that's, I think, the way that if I can't go that way, I'm okay with going. I went all the way to acquisition. That's pretty good.
Yeah. I self-published because I didn't like. I was like, mind you, at that time I didn't really try to get a publisher or anything. I was like, oh, I'm never going to get one, so I'm not going to try. And so I self-published 2 books, and I was like, I'm going to do. I did through Amazon. What's it called now? ADP, Direct Publishing or whatever.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
So I did it through there, and they're still up now. But I think I sold something like 400 copies, but I also gave away like 400 copies.
Okay.
So to like friends, family, to like events, and be like, hey. So it became a wash, but it was such hard work after the fact that even by the time someone read the first book, they're like, great, when's the next one coming out? And I'm like, the next one? I spent the last 3 months working on this one outside of work. Like, give me like a breath in this, you know what I mean? So, but
well, that you did it, but it's a lot. Yeah, it's not. Also, the different hats that you're wearing, right? Because it's not. I mean, sort of what I was saying at the beginning of the podcast. It's not just that you write children's books or you illustrate children's books, but also that you're going to market yourself, that you're going to present in front of people. These are so many different skill sets. There are people that are fantastic at marketing themselves, but when I see their book, I'm like, well, I don't really like your book though, or I don't feel like you're talking to children. It's so much, Maddie. There's so many different things that have to go right.
I agree, and I say this to people when they're like, well, like you're like writing for children. I said, actually, what you're writing for is all the gatekeepers before it gets to a child. So you go, let's say I write for myself, like to enjoy that, whatever, like, but I'm writing with the idea of a certain age child in there. And then I go, okay, let's say I have an agent and they're like, yep, this is the book, we're going to push it. Then you go, we're going to go to the publisher. Then they approve it, don't prove it. You keep going down, but then you got the parent or the grandparent or the auntie
or the
or
librarian,
the
the
uncle.
teacher.
The librarian,
Am I
the
going to read
teacher.
it aloud to my class? Am I going to do a lesson around it? There's
Yeah.
so many different things. And then you're also remembering, Maddie, that like tens of thousands of books get published every year. So you might have a fantastic book and I have a limited budget, or I saw a review in this trade publication during these months, and that's when I was buying it. There's so many factors that it sort of makes it a miracle that any book gets found by anybody.
Yeah, I fully agree. After this, I'll get your email. I'll send you a couple of my books your way,
right
so
on.
you can check them out.
Love that.
Just to have on your shelf. You don't have to do anything with them.
Just,
Use them as firewood. I don't know.
Well, I'm not going to set fire to my shelf. I will absolutely read your books. No, but I think that, getting a book out, whether it's whatever means you're using, is not a small thing. Plus, it's also having the confidence in yourself to publish it. There's a lot going on there.
So, last question. We'll get off this because we'll move on to other stuff. But how do you stay like unbiased when you're either like reviewing a book or when you're having a guest on? Because I'm sure there's publishers.
Maddie, I gotta push back on that.
Oh yeah,
because I don't know that it's possible for me to divorce myself from the library. I mean, I'm the rainbow representative of our school, the LGBTQ ally, the one who I'm front facing with parents and with along with our school psychologist. But the students are also very, very aware of my role in that position, as well as my lean toward representation, toward diversity, equity, and inclusion, toward justice, toward agency for these kids. And just me communicating those values to you means I'm absolutely going to be biased when I'm buying these books, just because I can't buy all the books. I have to make a decision.
Yeah.
And if I have to make a decision, it's going to come down to it will always come down to what are my kids going to read the most. I do need to make sure I'm buying new copies of Dogman and buying new copies of the books that are circulating, because I want to keep supporting those readers. Yeah. But if I'm looking for new books for them to discover, or for me to read aloud to you, or whatever, I am going to think about, does this author share a story or live a life that one of my students is going to see themselves in that they might not have had the chance to before? And that's going to influence my purchasing, because it matters deeply to me that my students see themselves in my library collection without me being there. I need them to just be able to walk in and feel like, this is my collection. I am of value because there's characters and families and experiences on this bookshelf that reflect my family or my religious beliefs or my food that we eat or any of those things.
Ethnicity or whatever.
Absolutely. And so in that way, I don't know if I could be unbiased in selecting stuff, because I think if I do that, you run the risk of, okay, so I did a fun fact. Here, we're gonna get into it.
All right, I'm all for it.
So I have done diversity audits of my library collection and of the podcast before.
Yep.
Just to see, I know where my values lie. I think I know where my values lie.
Yep.
But if someone who doesn't know me was just looking at my guest list on the podcast or my library shelf or my whatever, what would that say about me? Would it say, well, I mostly like white guys, so I mostly like talking to cisgender funny people? I don't know. But without doing that audit, I didn't know, or I wouldn't know, what my collection or what my podcast, my work was saying about me. And no matter what I tell you about my values,
if
you go look at my bookshelf and you're like, I hear him say this, but also these books are in his collection, or it looks like this, or if I'm doing random book pulls, this is what I get. That's what I'm saying. I can't just buy books. What I was leading to was that I have done then diversity audits of both our Scholastic Book Fair and of school library, of the starred reviews from Booklist, from School Library Journal, from LMC, these different magazines. And they're getting better now, but in the past 10 years, there was a problem that if you were just, if we have a limited budget and I have to have positive reviews for me to buy the book for our library collection, so that if it gets challenged, we have a professional review to go up against, right?
Yep.
But if I was only on my limited budget buying starred review books, as it turns out, I'd be mostly buying books at the time by white authors. And that's not necessarily bad unless you feel that value that I do of, but what of my kids that are looking toward the future and I want to be an author, but is this a space for me? No, it doesn't look like it's a place that has value for me or holds space for me, or the person reading the books to me doesn't seem to value me in this place. Those unconscious biases are something that I think I'm regularly trying to shine a light on so that I can do better. It's that Maya Angelou, we do the best we can until we know better, then when we know better, we do better. And so I don't know that I would trust someone who said they were unbiased in selecting books.
I fully agree with that. You can also see how that could go the wrong way. You know what I mean? So So
I can see. I mean, I can give a counterexample, even just to say too that I've had folks that have been, because of this platform, I'm accessible and visible to a much larger audience than just my school, right?
Yeah,
I get it. And I don't mind that. I appreciate that responsibility. I take it seriously. But I've had colleagues in schools that are predominantly white say, well, what does it matter if we don't have books that represent these other families and cultures? Because my kids look like this. Which we would go back to the work of Dr. Rudine Sims Bishop, a librarian who emphasized the value of windows and mirrors for readers. We need windows to see ourselves and to see our values reflected in the books, but we also need, we need mirrors to see ourselves. We also need mirrors, windows, though, to be able to see the lives of other people, because we can only live this one life, and through books and through media, we can live 100 other lives and build empathy for the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And so that would be my pushback to you is, if you're making that if someone is making that argument, then you're arguing that the strongest value is to live in a house of mirrors instead of a house with windows and mirrors.
Yeah. I think of that stuff as well. I think I have this sort of saying when I'm chatting with friends or people, if we could get the world and shake it like a snow globe, and everyone had to live somewhere else for like 2 weeks, and the world would be a better place, because everyone would be like, oh, yeah, they're just trying to get along like I am. They're like,
sure.
And that if we all just sort of got to know that a little bit better, and I think that's a way to do it through like books and media. I think you're totally correct. I agree.
Yeah, I think it's a powerful thing for a kid to go, oh, this character doesn't look like me or doesn't have a family like me, but I connect on this thing. They're having a hard time with fairness with their friend, and that's absolutely a thing that I go through too.
Oh.
There's so many different things, as you're saying, that we can connect with over one another, that it's helpful to see as different as we are. And that's beautiful that we're different. We are so much alike, but also those differences are what drive so much of our decisions, and being able to understand people coming from different circumstances from ours helps us, again, build empathy.
Yep. I couldn't agree more. All right. I'll get on to the next one. Which fictional character is your favorite?
Oh, goodness, it changes a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What fictional character is my favorite? I don't know. Let's go with Grover. Because as you're asking that question, I can't not think of there's a monster at the end of this book. It was one of my favorite books as a child. And then I'm like, well, that's a television character. But also, Grover was in a book for me. I think that... You're not asking this, but I feel like the value of fictional characters is that we project ourselves onto them.
Oh.
And
I have
is that
perfect...
not what I would have done with Grover? We were talking before about skateboarding.
Yeah.
How afraid is Grover of doing these things and whatever? And that's okay. He also... My memory of Grover on Sesame Street was of him interviewing children and hugging them and loving on them. And
yeah. He was always like I feel like he would always make mistakes, but always be like, have a positive attitude about it. Like when Super Grover would crash into a wall or that he wasn't meant to, and he'd be like, oh, Super Grover can do this, like kind of thing.
Confidence, but not a fool. Getting up and brushing yourself off and doing the thing. It was silly.
Yeah.
Of course it was silly. But not foolishness.
Yeah.
Just confidence enough to fail.
So, when I was a kid, and with the Ninja Turtles, I would always loved Raphael, like, because he just was angry. He just wanted to. I just loved him. I just loved that he was like, took no shit, just tried to like fight through. Yeah. As I got older, when I was a kid, I got given a gift as a Ninja Turtle toy, and it was a Donatello.
Let's go. That's the one. Come on, you can tell I'm Donatello through and through.
So I used to think I was a Raphael through and through until the last like maybe 10 years, and I was like, something popped up, or maybe one of the Ninja Turtle movies came out and I took my kid to it or something like that, and I was like, I'm way more of a Donatello than I am a Raphael. Like I would much rather create something and have fun doing it and still fight for what I believe in, but all that. So I'm way more of a Donatello. So
it's like identifying with Beast from the X-Men. It's the same thing.
Oh yeah.
But Maddie, I'll give you a connection to that. Just here's a little glimpse behind the curtain. Whenever I post, this is from when I was working at a Kids Co, and I've just maintained it. Whenever I post transcripts for my podcast, whenever I run transcripts through Descript, I color code the speakers, and mine is always purple. And my guest is always green. And then whenever I have additional people after that, I go in the order of my favorite Ninja Turtles. So it goes orange, yellow, to red, to blue. So always, if you ever look at my transcripts, if I have like a big group of people talking, you could see the colors of the Ninja Turtles through my transcripts.
Do you know what's funny is I'd always, like, if someone was, I'm a Leonardo, I'd be like, really? You're in Leonardo? Like that, even though like he's the leader and trying to be the good, I'd be like, come on. No.
Nope, don't like it. You're such a Cyclops. I don't like that.
Yes. Okay. What do you do for fun?
Probably the thing I do most often for fun is play video games.
Video games? Do you have any highlight video games?
I wish I could stop playing Hades.
Okay,
but
I don't know.
I can't not play Hades.
Okay,
which is a roguelike. It's wonderful and the story builds over every single playthrough, and it's fantastic. And I've played it for years. And Hades 2 is about to come out, and it's Supergiant's best game, and it's wonderful. And I love Hades.
Okay.
My first game that I ever loved was Mega Man.
Oh.
And then I guess after that would have been probably Super Mario Brothers 3, which would have been when I was in
Is that when they brought the tail out on him? Yeah. So I used to work at Nintendo, but when I first went in there, I realized I had such little idea. So I was a Sega kid growing up, or as you guys say it here, Sega. Which blows my mind.
As we say it here? As they say it when you boot it up, Maddie. They say
everyone
Sega.
In Australia. Yeah. I don't know if they changed it for Australia.
No kidding.
I have no idea. It's been so long. Okay. They could have, but the way our accent works, we would not say the word Sega. We'd be like, oh, Sega. We'd be like, Sega. Yeah. You know? Like, I can't even try and say it the wrong way.
Long E. You can't say it the other way.
No, and it's funny because even like, if I say Australia, I'm saying the A at the end with an R. And then when I say stuff with A, like water, I say with an A at the end instead of the R.
I hear it, yeah.
Yeah, that's wild. Like,
All
and
right.
so,
But because of your time playing all of the games on Sega,
Yeah.
Sega Genesis,
oh no, I was like Sega 2. I couldn't afford the Sega Genesis.
oh, not there. My friend had. I stayed Nintendo.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'd go over to my friends to play all of those games.
So I did the reverse. My friend had Duck Hunt, and I'd go over
yeah.
her house, and I'd be like, what the heck? This is amazing. And so I end up getting to work there. So if you, like, a back history of me, like, I grew up pretty poor. Like, my mum was on, like, government welfare back when I was a kid and stuff like that, really young. If you had told that kid that one day you're going to be one of the lead web designers for Nintendo of America,
Oh, cool.
I would have been like, nice one, good try. And so now that has given me the confidence to like pursue stuff like this and go, dang, we could get, like, you could do something bigger than what you've ever thought of doing. So,
Cool.
yeah, it's a wild journey. It's fun. But if you're ever over this way and you want to tour through Nintendo, I can hook you up with one of my friends there and they can take you through.
Oh, that'd be so fun.
Yeah.
No, I'm a Nintendo kid. You talk about Raccoon Mario. My racer on Mario Kart 8 has always been Tanuki Mario.
I got to work on the website for Mario Kart 8
Oh, cool.
when it first came out.
When Mario Kart 8 first came out and I had a Wii U, we had a kidlit group that would get on every Tuesday and race.
Oh.
And that was like the way. When I tell students are always like, I could beat you at Mario Kart. And I'm like, I'm so sorry to do this to you. You couldn't beat me at Mario Kart because I played with really, really good players. I'm like embarrassingly good. I'm so sorry. You could beat me at all the other things, kids. I can't play Fortnite because I never played the games where you have to use the two controllers.
Oh, yeah.
So my son makes fun of me all the time. I can't play games like that.
Yeah.
But don't try me on Mario Kart.
I say the same thing to my kids. So we used to do kart to start, and when
Okay.
we used to do 3DSs, and we'd at the end of Friday we'd do at the end at 4:00 everyone would go do like kart, like Mario Kart end of day, all talking trash in there in the little like conference room.
Sure.
But once we got Mario Kart 8 and it was on like Wii U, we would go and do a kart to start in the morning. So people would get in there like 10 minutes early, would do a kart to start, and then go.
So good. Oh, I
It
love
was.
that.
It's such a fun game. I would love if they did a version where you could do it where everybody had all like the Magic 8, but you only got it once. So you had to then choose when you were going to use those each pieces. So it became a very tactical, like warfare. Like you had to try and figure it out. Like
You have
going
each
around.
of these 8 items. You may each dispense them one time on this race.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
Yeah, it's great.
That's really cool. That's fun. Let's go to the next question. What is something you say to yourself? Oh, no, that just popped in my head. Do you have many Australian like author illustrators on there? I'm not talking for me. There's a guy called James Foley in Australia.
Foley. That's not a name I know. I've talked to a number of different people in Australia just because it was like one friend recommended another and another kind of thing.
I'll text you
Probably
about
not
him.
recently, but yeah.
He just popped in my head. He's really big in Western Australia. He has like these books, Brother Bot and all that stuff through a press over there. He's a fantastic dude. And I was like,
Lovely.
yeah. Anyway, just popped in my head as we were talking a second ago. And I was like,
No,
I'm
every
gonna
once in a
figure
while I'll get feedback about how America-centric my show is. And I'm like, well, I mean, I live in America.
Yeah.
So the publishers, those are the books the publishers are sending me. I don't have a bias against anybody from anywhere else in the world. I'd love to read. I read a lot of translated books, but no, that's wonderful.
There's also this lovely, she's got such a great style, Kelly Canby. So
Kelly Canby is a name I know.
Oh yeah, okay. So she wrote like Spot, Timeless, and stuff like that. Cool. Fantastic. Her personality is she's a fucking gem. She's
Love
just
it.
amazing, amazing.
It's terrific.
Yeah. So anyway, I'll text you those two, and then that way you can tee them up or not tee them up. But they're just such wonderful people, and I know them, and they in classrooms and that, and I think Kelly runs the like Squibby section over on Western Australia, and I think Jane Foley part of it. The group over in Western Australia for Squibby is super tight, but they're so nice. Like I moved back to Australia for like 3 years, 2018, 20, and once you get in that group, they're so inviting. They're so like, oh, hey, have you tried this? Let's meet together. Let's do that. And like, just wonderful people. And if you're willing to put in more time and effort, like, they're even better. You know what I mean? So
I'm trying to look up. There was a children's book podcast out of Australia that I thought was called
Reading with a Chance of Tacos.
Different. It's okay. Whatever it was years ago, but I can picture their logo. I'll have to find it.
Yeah,
but it was through a connection with them over social that a lot of author exchanges was happening.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Cool. All right. I'll shoot you these two when we're done. There's many more, but just those two at the top of my head, just Brad legends and Bryony Stewart and stuff like that. Anyway.
Yeah.
What do you say to yourself to lift yourself up?
Oh gosh, do I say anything, Maddie? I am terribly, terribly hard on myself.
You and me both. I'm super hard.
I have a very hard time getting out of my own head, but I will say this. Two lines that come to mind, I'll credit as an author illustrator in America.
Yep.
Named Steve Light.
Okay.
Steve Light has incredible line work. Maddie, you would love Steve Light.
Okay.
And every time he's ever been on the podcast, he and I talk about, or he talks about, and I lean in about nibs of fountain pens.
Oh.
He hand draws with it. He has like custom nibs, and I'm so interested in it. And he wrote one of my favorite books he ever wrote is called "Have You Seen My Dragon?" And it's a sort of a look and find book, but it has different, in this case, shapes that you're looking for, or locations, or Have You Seen My Dragon is counting through the city of New York. So there's one of these, two of these, three of those, but all of the line work that he has, and then he uses like watercolor to just highlight whatever we're counting. One of these, two of these, they're red, three of these are green. But it's just gorgeous. I don't have it behind me. It's in my library. Gorgeous, gorgeous line work. Anyway, Steve said to me, this was at the time of All the Wonders, to bring it back. I could picture when it was happening. We did All the Wonders of Swap, a book that he wrote about. Do you know, have you heard of the concept of I forget what they call it though, where you swap items and you go from having like a button to a couple paper clips to having this bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and until ultimately you swapped a button for like an entire ship?
Oh, no.
There's a concept. There's a term for that. I can't think of what it's called though. There's a middle grade novel about that too. The Kekla Magoon wrote. That's fantastic. I just can't access it in my brain right now. Anyway, Steve Light, around that time of All the Wonders and us featuring Swap, said to me, you have to run your own race.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a beautiful line. It's a line that I have in my head an awful lot alongside the line that I don't know who is credited for saying this. Comparison is the thief of joy.
Oh, yeah. I hear that
Maddie,
one quite a bit.
Yeah, I have a lot of joy thieving in my life, unfortunately. I let a lot of things take my joy.
Yeah.
And I recognize that. I'm like, oh, there's a joy thief right now happening.
Yeah.
But that accompanies my anxiety, that accompanies my insecurities. It's okay. I'm able to name it, and I think that's really helpful.
Yeah.
But running my own race that Steve Light had given me, it's a really great line. That's probably the one I would go to. I
like that as well. I usually just say to myself, let's go, motherfucker. You got this. That's usually when I'm working
good.
out.
I wish I could hype myself truly. I wish I could access a mantra that would break through the walls I put up in my own head. Yeah.
I feel you on that. What is a kind act someone has done for you that sticks with you to this day?
I've had a lot of kind things done for me, or rather I think I try to remember, if not the act, the feeling of how kind and safe the person was to me. I think that the one that's coming to my mind right now, probably because I evoked her name earlier, was Dr. Mangan, my English professor in college. She cared for me in a way I didn't know I needed to be cared for at a time when my mom was in the hospital a lot, dealing with chronic illness.
Oh.
I think that I didn't know how much it was affecting me, and Dr. Mangan gave me an incredible amount of love and grace and checking in. Yep. I can remember her checking in on me and just thinking, I wonder why she's checking in on me. But I also remember how nice it felt.
Yeah.
So I think that kindness at that time probably influenced how I show up for my kids and for my students.
Wow.
Probably. There's a lot
Have
there.
you ever told her that? Or I don't know if she's passed away or not, but like...
I haven't followed up with her since college, no.
That'd be interesting to sort of say, like, hey, that kind act, like, influences what I do for kids now.
Yeah, I mean, it's the way that LeVar Burton showed up on Reading Rainbow, and the way that Fred Rogers showed up on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and these very specific grown-ups in my life that just were, I guess, showing up at formative moments that that where they left their fingerprint is something that just, I guess, continues to have ripples with me.
Yeah. It's amazing. Who is someone alive you would like to meet?
Someone alive I'd like to meet. Gosh, I don't know. This is going to be... I'm so sorry, Maddie. I'm taking this so abstractly.
No, that's fine.
The person is alive, but not in the way that you're asking it. But I'm going to just lean into it because our conversation has sort of primed this in me. I wish that I could meet my childhood self.
Oh.
I wish that... I know that through the work of therapy, we do reach back to our childhood selves, and all of us, I think, really are just responding to our childhood selves forever. Yeah. But I think that I'm gonna cry. I think that I'd love to meet my childhood self and let him know that it's okay.
Do you know what?
It's okay.
I feel the same way. Like that.
Hello, are you home?
Sorry, that's my son. Calling me on my watch. It is one of those things where I grew up in a pretty dysfunctional home, and sometimes after the fact there's like a bit of anger or there's a bit of fight or flight in that, and where I could go, you know what? It's okay. You're going to get through this. You're going to come out on the other side. It's going to be good. And even now, sort of saying that to myself now and being like, it's okay. The world's not going to fall apart right now because of this decision of your kid not giving manners at the right time or whatever it is, you know?
I think for me, it would be reaching back and saying that sensitivity that you have. I'm a highly sensitive kid and an adult, and just sort of saying, like, it's okay. Yeah. It's okay that you are. Because I think that a lot of insecurity has been reinforced through some other relationships that I prefer not to remember, but just as you have those formative relationships, you also have these others that are formative for the other swing of the pendulum. So
I fully agree. Okay, when's the last time you rode a bike?
Last summer. I haven't since I moved to a new place, but my son loves to ride a bike, and I, because I couldn't skateboard, and also because we were riding our bikes across the Market Street Bridge in Williamsport to get to the Little League World Series and stuff like that. I was just mobile all the time. I was on my bike all the time with my friends. So that's an easy it's an easy thing to come back to. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Again, just haven't because I live in a condo now and I see my kids on a different schedule. But I love riding a bike.
I see ya. I get it. Riding a bike's fun. It feels very youthful to me as well.
Oh,
like,
okay.
I see like there's an adult BMX bikes you can get. They're built a bit bigger and they're like got a different frame, slightly different frame. And one of my friends in Australia had one. I was like, I'm going to get one. Then he told me the price. I was like, I'm not going to get one. But in my head, it sits here. I'm like, that would be really fun. Go and doing little bunny hops off the curbs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
I'd be into that. But I got an electric bike that I ride around because it's so hilly around here. I'm like,
so
I'm not riding to the store. Like
it's nice you even get to get out though. That's nice.
Yeah, it is nice. It's beautiful around here, especially in summer. That's fantastic.
Yeah, great.
All right, last 2 questions. What are 3 things that you are grateful for?
I'm grateful for my sensitivity.
Oh,
I don't want to let this conversation pass without saying that I know that it makes me care really well.
Yeah.
It makes me care for others because I'm seeking that care for myself.
Yeah.
I give out what I know I want back.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm grateful for my kids and the way that I both see myself in them and I see them as people that I'm not. I love that my kids aren't me because I guess that they are the product of me trying to repair whatever I thought went wrong in my childhood, but they will ultimately have that cycle as well.
Yeah.
But they're just fantastic. And
yeah.
I love them and I sometimes miss them even when they're with me.
Yeah. I feel when my kid goes to their room and I just want to be by myself sometimes, I'm like, really? We can just hang out. Let's hang out. They're like, no, I just want to be on. I'm like, fair enough. Like, yeah, I feel you on that.
Yeah. And what else am I grateful for? I'm always grateful for the rain.
The rain?
The rain, always. Yeah.
Like, I know
Today
we need the rain.
Oh, no, but it's all of it. It's the feel of the wet air. It's the sound. It's the way that things look when they reflect off of surfaces. There's so much. I can't. Yeah. There's so much about the rain and the 100 different ways that rain can show up that I just love.
I love the sound of rain on a tin roof. Like,
oh yeah, I grew up. My grandmother had like a wavy roof. That was plastic,
corrugated iron.
But also made just the most fantastic and loudest sound ever. That I love that.
There's a lot of tin roofs in Australia, so you'd go like some houses I lived in, you'd have a tin roof and it'd be like ding 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 ding, and you're like, you can just hear it, like you're part of it. Kind of thing. Yeah,
we camped a lot growing up, so I think for me, the rain also meant like it wasn't going to be so swelteringly hot.
Oh, okay. That to me just meant I had muddy feet when I was going to sleep.
Maybe we did tent camping as well as like camper camping, pop-up camper camping. It's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Because we would drive everywhere. We would drive into Canada, or we would drive down to Florida. There would be times when it was really, really hot. So that rain,
I bet.
The rain helped.
Yeah, if you're in Florida, like when you're in Hawaii or something like that, or even top of Australia, and it's like a summer like humid rain, and you're like, oh, it's going to be dry in like 20 minutes, so that we're fine with that. You know what I mean? That stuff's good. I like that.
Yeah.
All right. Last question, and then I can let you get back to hanging out with your kids.
Love it.
You have to wear a shirt with a slogan on it for a year. What does it say?
I think it says, I love you.
Oh, I like that.
Help for other people to see it and help for me to see it whenever I walk past a reflection.
In your house of mirrors?
No, I'm not living in a house of
mirrors. I know. I was just being a smart ass.
No, but it would help me to see it myself too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, Matt, thank you so much for... Oh, Matthew, sorry. Sorry, my bad.
Thanks, Matty.
It's self-loathing there of saying the Matt, you know? Thank you so much for coming on here. This has been fantastic. I've loved the ride that we've been on. I will have an illustration out to you in a couple of weeks, and the podcast will be up then, and hopefully I do you justice with the illustration that I create.
Matty, this was wonderful spending time with you.
Yeah, it's been
Thanks for
awesome.
showing up
Thank
the
you.
way
I
you
got
did.
like my cheeks are sore from like smiling and enjoying myself.
I appreciate the connection a lot.
Yeah, thank you very much.